and welcome to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition, where we aim to maximize your understanding and minimize your need for memorization. Each episode will recap content, skills, and test-taking tips to help you succeed in May. I'm your host, Melanie Kingett, and your recap starts now. Hi, and welcome to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition. Today's episode will recap common ancestry. Let's zoom out. We're in Unit 7, Natural Selection, Topic 7.7. Our big idea is evolution. Your mother was a lobed-finned fish.
Hey!
Everybody is descended from somebody, and although it's been several million years since you shared fish characteristics, there is evidence of common ancestry hidden deep down within every cell structure and molecular process. And not just with fish, but with cacti, mushrooms, and amoebas too. So more specifically for this episode, your mother was a eukaryote. Let's zoom in. Today, we are going to focus primarily on eukaryotes. You remember eukaryotes, right?
If you give me a week, I might think of one. I don't remember.
What? You don't? Quick recap. Eukaryotes are organisms found within the domain Eukarya and include the kingdoms of protists, fungi, plants, and animals.
No, I remember.
Within this broad range of diverse organisms, there are several commonalities. Each are composed of one or more eukaryotic cells, which contain a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. This is in contrast to prokaryotes, domains bacteria and archaea, whose cells lack a nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Membrane-bound organelles? I'm sure you've heard that phrase so many times that it's almost lost meaning.
Don't hear only what you want to hear.
Which organelles are we referring to exactly? These are the cellular structures, which are primarily composed of a phospholipid bilayer, bent and folded into specific shapes for each of their specific functions. From this commonality, we get the endomembrane system, a fancy term for a group of organelles which can interact seamlessly with the help of vesicles. It includes the endoplasmic reticulum, smooth and rough, and Golgi apparatus. You'll also find the chloroplasts and mitochondria surrounded by membranes. Two, in fact. Get a refresh on the endosymbiosis theory with episode 34. And the purpose of all these membrane-bound organelles?
You have been brought here for a purpose.
Compartmentalization. Structural and functional cellular evidence provide support for the common ancestry of all eukaryotes. Next up, the organization of DNA. As previously mentioned, all eukaryotic cells store DNA within the nucleus, enclosed by a nuclear envelope, or membrane, made of...
I'll give you one guess.
You guessed it, a bilayer of phospholipids. But it's not just the location of DNA which unifies all eukaryotes together. It's organizational method as well. Eukaryotes contain multiple linear chromosomes of DNA wrapped around histones. These chromosomes range greatly in size and quantity from organism to organism. For example, humans have 46 homologous pairs, dogs 78, fruit flies 8, and the Venus flytrap 32. No matter the quantity, eukaryotes replicate their DNA during the S phase of the cell cycle using familiar enzymes, topoisomerase, helicase, DNA polymerase, etc., and at multiple origin sites. This is in contrast to prokaryotic DNA organization, which has a singular circular chromosome with one origin site of replication.
If you were to find yourself faced with the opportunity to hunt for buried treasure, and you had the option of either A, going on that treasure hunt with an experienced adventurer and access to the treasure map, or 2, winging it and just figure it out as you go. Now, winging it is admittedly very exciting, but the phrase, "I'll figure it out as I go," is usually the last thing I say before getting very lost or spending hours digging through the trash for the furniture assembly instructions I said I didn't need. An experienced adventurer and access to the treasure map is probably the smartest option. Now swap out the word treasure map with study guide, adventurer with teacher, and buried treasure with educational aspirations, and... I don't know where I was going with that. But what I do know is that we have study guides, virtual classrooms, and tutoring sessions available now at www.TheApsoluteRecap.com. Now back to the recap.
Lastly, what type of information do the genes contain? Well, that all depends on which sections are spliced out before expression. Yes, the central dogma is a large piece of molecular evidence for common ancestry. In eukaryotes, the flow of information from DNA to RNA to proteins occurs distinctly and in separate cellular locations. The pre-mRNA transcript produced in the nucleus contains exons, sections of the genetic code which will be expressed following translation, and introns, interrupting sequences to be removed. One process of gene regulation that occurs within eukaryotes is called alternative splicing. This means that different introns are removed from the mRNA transcript from one gene to the next, resulting in varying protein products from the same genetic code. You won't find introns in prokaryotes, since transcription and translation occur simultaneously with the same mRNA molecule. Time for unit connections. Unit 2, cell structure and function. Don't you remember that ribosomes are found in all organisms? This greatly reflects the interconnectedness of life. Unit 5, heredity. The enduring understanding here is that living things are linked by lines of descent from common ancestors. This is further reinforced since fundamental processes are shared and conserved across the tree of life. We've already mentioned this earlier in Unit 7, but recall vestigial structures, nucleotide sequences, and amino acid sequences, all evidence of common ancestry. Everybody's using the same genetic code. Okay, what about the exam? It is suggested that you practice predicting changes to a system based on a visual, concept, process, or model. You'll want to review phylogenetic trees, character chart tables, and cell structure diagrams as well. To recap, everything is connected, and the evidence is overwhelming. You are in the domain Eukarya, kingdom Animalia, but the common ancestor of all eukaryotes was the OG, with membrane-bound organelles, linear chromosomes, and genes that contain introns. Each piece of structural and process evidence on the molecular and cellular level supports the common ancestry of all eukaryotes. Coming up next on the Absolute Recap Biology Edition, Continuing Evolution. Today's question of the day is about chloroplasts. Collectively, what is a stack of thylakoids called? For the answer to the question of the day, please follow us on Instagram at TheApsoluteRecap. That's the APsolute Recap. Check out our website, TheApsoluteRecap.com, for episode schedules, study guides, virtual tutoring, and to sign up for our virtual classroom. The Absolute Recap is produced by Brad Kingett with music by Zach Caruso. Today's episode was written by me, Melanie Kingett. Thanks for subscribing, and don't forget to rate and review wherever you get podcasts. Time's up. Pencils down. Thank you for listening to the Absolute Recap Biology Edition. AP is a registered trademark of the College Board. Copyright 2020, Absolute Recap LLC, all rights reserved.